All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're back on the internet again today. We're talking about protests in Melbourne. Protests are bad when you're an Australian person protesting against government decisions and policy, but it's all good if you're part of the woke left. Let's jump into it.
The Premier is being urged to cancel her trip to China, with police set to be stretched to the limit across the state this weekend. Rival protest groups are planning action in the city tomorrow, just a day before Jacinta Allen jets off.
So you're going to love that, right? Well, also, you're going to zero in. So if you guys don't know, there's more marches for Australia. Obviously, they haven't been widely promoted out there. I haven't seen much about it at all. So you got people doing the walks again today, just for Australia, and you're going to have people who are going to come in and they're going to cause conflict. And we're going to see it all over the news again tonight. So you get left-leaning groups, in my honest opinion, majority of them are completely fanatical and violent. They're going to come in and they're going to clash with people. They're coming to start this up, so then it's caught on camera. And then what do? They focus in on a few of the F-wits that come and push the racism views from all Australians, apparently. You know, the Thomas Sewells of the world. You can see this is what's going to happen today.
As duelling protesters prepare to face off in the city again, the Lord Mayor says they're not welcome.
My message to people considering coming into the city for the protests this weekend, I'd say don't come, please.
Don't come. It's okay if you're you're protesting for any other cause, but if it's for standing up against a government and voicing your displeasure with everything that's going on in this world, particularly in Victoria, and also more or less just being patriotic and just wanting to go out and celebrate the country, you can't do that. You're a white-wearing nut job. You're turning the place into a war zone, etc. But as I said, that's fine. It's fine if you want to come and protest or anything else. Environmental protests around climate change where people lie on the road, that's all right. We got the pro-Palestinian and all that sort of conflict going on, and you've got all those protests happening. That's fine. They're just peaceful. That's fine. No worries. Don't tell those people to stay home. Don't tell those people to stay home. If you are just someone out supporting a common sense narrative of this country is going to the dogs, you are persona non grata. Do not go out. We don't encourage you. What does this remind you of? This reminds me of when people were out protesting during the COVID lockdowns. You cannot be seen to have a voice. The people cannot speak up about anything. You will be shut down. The cops will be there in full force.
2 weeks after violence erupted, 6 protests are slated.
Apparently that chick who got dropped on her head, she was just carrying on like a pork chop. So, F around and find out, really. Those people, they come to these particular rallies and all that sort of stuff. They're looking for trouble. They're looking for it. They are inciting it, saying a lot of vile things. She got pile-drived on her head. We would have loved to know what she was carrying on about. It was like, oh, poor woman got dropped on her head in the protest. It was just violent, just picked up a random and threw her on the ground. They don't show what the full conflict.
For this weekend, 4 tomorrow.
You'll love that. The guy with the Australian flag wrapped around him, that's the only one that was shown to be doing anything violent. They've shown the people wearing the black outfits, right? It's all violent. You can see it's a complete media hit job.
Melbourne is starting to look like the bar scene from Star Wars, and enough is enough.
It is the duty of all good people to stand up and confront racism and fascism.
The far right announced its protests first.
Racism and fascism. So hang on, and they burn the Australian flag. Is that racist? I'll almost say that is, in my opinion, that is sacrilegious. Sacrilege. But I'm not even a highly political person. I'm not a highly patriotic person. But when I see that happen here, and that's okay, there's huge problems here. I've talked about this a number of times. You see this happening all the time. And you'll get people in the comments, oh, yeah, they care about having a whinge over the flag getting burnt. Well, wherever you're from, wherever your background and heritage is from, if you saw your flag burnt on the ground, there would be extreme uproar. If someone was burning the Palestinian flag. That'll be all over the news as racism gone mad.
The far left plans counter-protests converging outside Parliament.
We're not personally intimidated by these thugs.
Nazi group, the National Socialist Network, who were at the last, announced today they won't be there tomorrow, saying the upcoming Melbourne rally will be met with serious violence from the left. There will be no black shirts to protect rally goers this time.
There will be. These people are saying there's no room for violence and they're not threatened. They're the ones going there and starting this. Why can't you do your other protests on another day? Why do you need a counter-protest? And I don't, once again, I'm not supporting what the black shirt people did and they're running into Aboriginal camp. Like, it's complete stupidity. And in my opinion, very bad behaviour. It's horrible what they did. And, punching Aboriginal people. The 99.9% other normal, rational human beings, non-radical, who are going today, they're not violent, and they're going to be met with these people who resort to violence because, as we know, and as we've seen recently, there's a lot of tensions building up between left and right because the left can't have an opposing view that argues with their own. They cannot deal with it. It has to be stuffed out with violence. And in my opinion, a lot of these leftist type people, they have a terrorist mindset, causing violence and drama and all that sort of stuff. Disruption, isn't that terrorism? But no, it's the right-wing people are now terrorism. It's just backwards. And absolutely, those guys who wear the black and do all that stuff, yeah, fine. But they've come out. There was a news report probably about a week ago. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it. Put in the comments if you have. It was about that the NSN was now be labelled a terrorist organisation. So what about all these leftists? And look, hey, you know what? I don't wholeheartedly disagree with that. But what are they doing apart from protesting? And they were violent, but have they murdered anyone? Have they killed anyone? Has anything been blown up? Has anything been set on fire? No. I think it's the pack of guys who they're radicalised as well. They're just hating what's happening over here and they're just probably taking it way too far. But what about these left-leaning, these woke brigades? Burning flags and carrying on and starting punch-ons. You see the footage of those fights. It is these people who want to clash. They're the ones running up, carrying on, screaming at people, inciting violence.
The reality is, though, unfortunately, that far-right politics in Australia extends well beyond the NSN.
We need to do more around attacking the causes that are driving hate and anger in people.
It's not just tomorrow's protests that will cause city disruptions. At noon on Sunday, the 100th weekly protest by pro-Palestinian activists will start at the State Library and march to Parliament at 2 p.m. It comes as the Premier...
See, nothing said about that. Just a light mention, right? Just a light mention. You just have a look at how the media is reporting this. And Jacinta she's going to come down hard on you protesters who go against the hammer and sickle narrative that's being pushed very heavily in the woke Republic of Victoria.
Prepares to leave the country for 5 days. Former Premier Jeff Kennett critical of her trip to China next week amid escalating crime, protests and a stretched police force. Telling her online today, cancel your trip, Premier.
Jam-packed with huge opportunities. There are government-to-government meetings, there are business meetings, there are cultural engagements.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Oh yeah, great. All right, let's move on to the next report. There's a little bit of overlap here, but a slightly different narrative. And then after that, we're going to take a quick look at the Sky News report on that as well. So before we get there, consider subbing to the channel. Press the hype button in your comments section. If you swipe to the left or right on your phone, you should be a hype button. Press that. Let's get me out there. Really appreciating all the support I've been having very recently on this channel. Thank you very much. Just like and comment and share. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts. Put them in the comments. Let's discuss. I love reading all the comments and seeing everybody engage, whether you agree with me or not. I never delete comments unless they are blatantly abusive, and that is quite rare. So if your comments are getting removed, that's the YouTube algorithm. It is not me. I'm not doing that. I'm all about free speech.
Victoria Police are tonight bracing for another weekend of protest mayhem, with 6 separate demonstrations to be staged over the next 2 days. Rebecca Powell is in Melbourne for us tonight. Beck, police will be there in big numbers tomorrow.
Taylor, we saw a huge police presence 2 weeks ago, and tomorrow there will be even more. Members of the Specialist Unit, as well as the Public Order Response and the Mounted Branch, will be deployed in the CBD. Some will be travelling from regional areas, despite being stretched with their search for Desi Freeman. That's because authorities are concerned these protests could be more violent than those we saw earlier this month, when the March for Australia rally faced off against anti-racism and pro-Palestinian protesters. 4 separate rallies are being held tomorrow, starting from 11 a.m. with far...
I want to talk about, because this is a little bit of a double up, right? So I want to talk about that. They talk about anti-racism protests. This whole thing wasn't about racism. It is not about racism. People say stopping migration is racist. It isn't racist. It's just slowing it down. The whole system is buckling under the pressure of more and more people coming in, wherever they're from. There are also white immigrants, people coming from the UK and Europe. Is it about Indian people? The narrative that the media has sent is that it's an Indian hate campaign. It's not. Maybe the NSN guys, maybe they're talking like that, and you get a few people that are really radicalised saying things like that. You saw people trying to say racist things on the footage that was shown. No one was supporting it. It's not about racism. Unfortunately, that's the narrative that's been created. We knew it was going to happen. People can't come and march out against... It's basically anti-government, anti-government policy. People want change. You got a government in who is not listening to people at all. They're going and doing the complete opposite of what most rational people want, which is bringing in hundreds of thousands or more people to each major city every year. People are having enough. I thought it was really interesting as well when they had that article out there. I'm not sure. Tell me if you saw that thing with the people who went to the March for Australia, and then they had this thing. I saw it on Reddit, which they made it to the news, making fun of people who went and protested because they were eating Chinese food. How stupid have you got to be? Once again, it's not a racist. It wasn't a racist, gathering. It's anti-government. We're going to turn it into racial hatred because people are saying, stop mass migration. It's not anti-immigrant. As I said, people will hear what they want to hear. I make a lot of videos, and some people put a lot of comments if they don't agree with me about things that I've said in the video, which I never even said, or the message wasn't even that. So people will hear what they want to hear. So absolutely bonkers country we live in.
Right and far left groups spread across different parts of the city. They're all expected to culminate and potentially come to a head at Spring Street. The anti-government and anti-immigration protest is set for noon at State Parliament, while their opposition will gather at Flinders Street.
It's not anti-immigration, it's stopping mass migration. Once again, got it wrong. But it is anti-government. I think what they should say, it's a protest for people saying, we don't like what you're doing here. Stop. That's it. Yes, mass migration is one of the major things that people are fed up with because, as I said, property prices through the roof, rental prices through the roof, rental availability next to zero, vacancy rate is very low. You go to open for inspections, either you're going to buy a house or if you want to rent, but more specifically renting, you got 100 couples turning up, young hopefuls trying to get into a place. Have a think about that. You might have only really seen that previously. It was a really an outlier of a fantastic property at a good price. You'd see all these people trying to get it. Now it's just like standard.
Station an hour earlier. Police also suspect the neo-Nazi group, the National Socialist Network, will attend, though its leader, Thomas Sewell, remains...
They said they're not going. So whether they turn up or not, who knows? But the message is they're not going, and that's good. Don't want them there because they undermine the whole thing. But it doesn't matter. They'll see a couple of people wearing black who are maybe part of this, a few stragglers, and once again it'll be Melbourne's racial disgrace.
Behind bars tonight. Taylor, this is the advice from the Premier to the public.
And I urge everyone anyone who is thinking of attending events in the city this weekend to respect Victoria Police, to respect community safety, but understand that anyone who doesn't will be dealt with by Victoria Police.
Oh, he went so hard on crime when it was, as I said, the other mob carrying on. They get a free pass just about. But if you're there, you're at risk of being arrested. Victoria Police full brunt of the law. It's a very replicant of Daniel Andrews in the COVID pandemic response, and when you had some small minorities in the community that just weren't following the rules, and people gathering, send out the Victorian Police to sort them out. It's all going to come to a head here, though.
Melbourne Police aren't the only ones preparing for disruptions this weekend. More rallies are also planned for all capital cities over the next 2 days. Taylor?
Thanks, Beck.
Here we go. And there's an interesting take. This is from Sky News about... I don't want to talk about this too much, just out of respect for the person that was murdered. Charlie Kirk. They're talking about how his assassination may turn people more to the radical right. Let's see how we go.
Bring in the panel, research fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, Mia Schlitt, and Sky News contributor Joe Hildebrand. To both of you, thanks for joining me on the program. I want to start with the assassination of US Conservative Charlie Kirk. That is expected to galvanise opposing protest groups in Australia this weekend, sparking police fears of violent clashes amid what can only be described as rising political tensions. Melbourne Lord Mayor Nick Rees pleaded for a rethink. Have a listen to his thoughts.
Livelihoods are on the line here. I mean, my message to people considering coming into the city for the protests this weekend, I'd say don't come, please. The level of disruption and harm that you are causing to Melbourne, the people of your city, is more than the good. Melbourne is starting to look like the bar scene from Star Wars.
As I said, they are coming out and all this stuff when it's just Aussies coming out. They don't want to hear it. You got to be quiet. The people cannot uprise in any way. Let's move on. We saw his spiel before, so I don't want to listen to him again.
There are numerous protest groups protesting about all sorts of things descending on the Melbourne CBD this weekend. You've got retailers and restaurateurs are at their wits' end. Mia, what do these protests achieve other than just punishing businesses that are already struggling?
Yeah, look, James, I can completely understand that there are many businesses in the CBD, particularly here in Melbourne, who are pretty fed up and are a bit tired of the state that our city is in. I mean, you just have to look at the crime rates, the vandalism that occurs, or all the empty shop fronts that never quite recovered from COVID. And you can see why they're fed up with the constant radical activists who are disturbing their day-to-day businesses. But what I do find here quite ironic is I've got the Lord Mayor Nick Rees speaking up about these protests, but where was he when we had radical anti-Israel protesters storming a local restaurant here in Melbourne, interrupting their business, or we had protesters burning the Australian flag?
You tell him.
I didn't see him concerned about the disruption to businesses in that instance. And I think the other important point that I want to make here is what we can't do in this instance is we have some protesters who are out there speaking this weekend about very legitimate concerns around migration numbers and things such as housing crises. What we cannot do is conflate that with the tragic and brutal murder of a free speech activist over the week. These are two very distinct and very important issues. What we can't have is our politicians coming forward and delegitimising one cause by saying that these protests are too risky.
Of course they're going to do that. They're going to latch on to anything because as someone who lives in Victoria, someone who lives in Melbourne, you cannot be a common sense individual here. All these protests that we have, this has been happening for years. It's all been radical, leftist, woke, just activism. As I mentioned earlier in the video, many different causes. That's fine. There's nothing on the news about it. There's nothing about businesses being fed up about it. There's nothing about all the disruptions and the hundreds of thousands of people that are made late for work when people shut down the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or when they shut down Flinders Street, St Kilda Road. There's no concern there. But as I said, this is a very legitimate local cause. It's local. We're supporting protests and radicalists protesting about issues that don't concern the average Australian person. People say, well, you support, as I said, babies being killed in Israel. I don't. But that's an issue over in Israel, the other side of the world. We're having these protests. Local Australians, white, black, brown, yellow, green, blue, whatever colour you are. It's not a white supremacist rally. Talking about the state of this place. It doesn't matter where you're from. We're all Australians. We are. Just the people who are here have had enough of what is going on at the moment. That's it. That's it. It's not, as I said, I don't want to have to go on and talk about it anymore. Every person I've talked to who touches on this issue, they think it's ridiculous how most of it is being framed, if you're a common sense individual. As I said, sometimes it's better to be off planet if you're a rational, normal person, especially in this state.
Well, there's other protests planned this weekend in New South Wales. New South Wales police say resources are at breaking point, Joe. They're preparing for 3 days of unauthorised anti-Israel protests targeting Labor MPs' offices. And police are warning the ongoing disruptions are costing millions of dollars and pushing officers to burnout. How long can taxpayers be expected to keep footing the bill for these protests? And, of course, it takes police away from doing the things that they should be doing, which is, following up crimes.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, mate. It's disgraceful, the level and also the nature of the protest action.
Joe, where are you, man? What's his bedroom going on here?
That have been taking place. The sheer pig-headedness of protesting every single Sunday already had police resources at breaking point. Police are already understaffed critically in New South Wales, and when they have to use up all their overtime to police these protests, it not only costs taxpayers a huge amount of money, but it also results in increased burnout and a lack of police resources where they are needed, which is on the streets fighting crime, as you say. I'm also deeply concerned about the repercussions from the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which was absolutely disgraceful, and yet we have had left-wing activists say that that celebrating this death, and even left-wing extremists condemning moderates on the left who are trying to express sympathy or trying to call for calm or trying to stop people from delighting.
Because they're terrorists. That's it, plain and simple. Plain and simple. Do you hear? And once again, I'm politically agnostic. I just can't stand the left. I can't stand the radical left anyway. They make no sense to me. I believe they're the first to violence. As I said, the understanding, the calm left, the reasonable left. No, they're all nutcases, right? So that's my honest opinion on it. I've got no time for people who carry on in that manner, rise to anger and get nasty. But what I also don't have time for is people gloating on the internet about someone being assassinated, regardless of who it is, left or right or up or down. What world are we living in where people are celebrating this on the internet? It's absolutely bonkers. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching all. Hope you have a good day. And once again, press that hype button if you're new. Cheers.